Well, good morning. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Deborah Pinkerton. Welcome to Morning Light. Now, President Donald Trump will get a firsthand look at the devastation caused by catastrophic flooding in Texas today. The July 4th disaster killed at least 120 people. More than 170 others are still missing.
It's been a very hard and heavy week for so many families
been.
there. Well, a federal judge has blocked President Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship, but it begs a larger question. How do we, you and I, view the responsibility of being an American citizen? How would we do on a citizenship test? Well, the panel will bring some morning light to the topic in just a minute.
And meanwhile, here is a preview of what's coming up later in the show. Hope lives here. The Philly House has been helping the hungry, homeless, and hurting since 1878. Now the mission is undergoing the largest renovation project in more than 50 years. Plus, we will introduce you to a young couple who are serving aboard the floating hospital Mercy ships. Learn how this ministry is making a difference with the patients.
Both of these stories, I got a little bit of a preview for both. They're really exciting. What they're doing, and long-running legacies. Yeah,
that's right.
Well, on Thursday, a federal judge in New Hampshire issued a preliminary injunction against an executive order by President Donald Trump, halting his order aimed at ending birthright citizenship for children of undocumented immigrants or temporary visa holders. The judge agreed the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution guarantees citizenship to all individuals born on U.S. soil. The amendment dates all the way back to the post-Civil War era, granting citizenship to ex-slaves, the requirement that they be born in the United States.
But if you weren't born on American soil, the path to becoming an American citizen requires a civics test. Applicants must study 100 possible questions about U.S. history and government. Then they will be asked 10 questions, and they will need to answer at least 6 correctly. Now, you must be 18 years old to apply, and you must be able to read, write, and speak basic English, and be of good moral character, too.
So I'm just going to stop right now and just ask you 3 or 4 questions. Is that all right? So what about the rest of us whose citizenship is, well, automatic? What does it mean to have these privileges and the responsibilities which accompany the title citizen? President Theodore Roosevelt said a good citizen is someone who's willing to pull his weight or her weight. But if you're an American Christian that carries a blue passport, you're also a citizen of heaven. How does that impact the way you serve and love your neighbors and the world around you? We'll take these questions to the Morning Light panel this morning. And what a panel it is for a Friday. The question that is on the table is one that we have been debating in America to some degree. Immigration, naturalization, who gets to be a citizen. All through our history, there's been a tug of war and a lot of tension because once somebody feels that they are an original American, which maybe takes 50 years or so, the idea of others coming in, will they love the country like we do? Will they be as good as we are? So I want to start with something this morning. Now, I'm not going to ask you to answer the questions, but I'm going to ask our audience to just go along for a second. Here are a few questions on those 100 questions on the citizenship test. What is one right or freedom from the First Amendment? How many amendments does the Constitution have? What are 2 rights in the Declaration of Independence? That should be an easy one, I think. The House of Representatives has how many members? Uh-oh. Some people in our audience are going, well, I think it is, right? Why do some states have more representatives than other states? If both the Speaker and the Vice President can no longer serve, who becomes president? And on and on and on it goes, right? People who are preparing to be citizens have to go through that test. Robert, what was that test like for you? Do you remember that?
I do remember it.
Were you nervous?
Well. I was nervous.
Yeah.
But I did my homework. And certainly because you didn't know which question you were going to get asked.
Right.
Yeah. So you had to be prepared.
Yeah. So what do you remember your score? You had to get 6 out of 10. Did you pass the first time?
I did. I did pass the first time.
And what was your sense when you became an American citizen? Was there a sense that you were being disloyal to India, or that there was, when you get to that point, you're renouncing your citizenship in another country? What does that feel like?
Yeah. It was an interesting feeling. I'm not even sure how I would describe it, but certainly I spent a lot of time reflecting. Yeah. And because you actually do say I renounce all loyalty to kings or former power or whatever the wording is. So it is a serious oath. I mean, if you take it seriously, it is a serious oath. But once I made that decision to become a U.S. citizen, there was no turning back. I embraced it fully. I got involved in the political process, very engaged in my local community, and things like that. So I just immersed myself into being a U.S. citizen.
But Pastor, the idea of being a citizenship of heaven adds a whole other wrinkle to this, because we want one thing to live as an American citizen, we kind of know what it means to be an American. But when you add on the layer that, oh no, I'm a citizen of heaven, you're renouncing, just like Robert said, your allegiance to everything, everyone, even your family. Which is harder, do you think, being a citizen of the United States and those responsibilities, or being a Christian?
Well, that's a tough question, but the beautiful thing about it is being a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, my obligation is to serve those who I'm in contact with. So just like in the book of Jeremiah, even though Israel was in captivity, God told them to pray for the peace of the city and look out for, build up the environment you're around and build up the people you're around. So even though my first loyalty is to the kingdom of God and Jesus Christ being our king, my obligation is to serve and to help and to better the people around us, our neighbor, the whole, parable about the, who is my neighbor, and those type of things. So I think that
it's a simple question, but it's so profoundly hard.
And there's so many different layers to it because, of course, we are come to serve, even though our loyalty is to the kingdom of heaven.
I'm going to ask you a question based on your experience working in corrections. So there is not always agreement when people are incarcerated, whether or not they somehow fell a peg or two on they're no longer neighbors per se, because so they don't fit that definition. How do you humanize and provide the nobility of being a neighbor enough to love them even when they're incarcerated? How does that work?
Yeah, I never, humanizing or someone's humanity has never been in question to me, and I think it's because of growing up as a Christian.
Right?
No, certainly part of it, but in growing up a Christian, I think it's the advantage we have, where that's not supposed to be our first filter. Our first filter is not supposed to be where someone is currently at. Our first filter is supposed to be what someone's potential is, quite frankly. And I think that's what really translates to a situation where someone's done, in some cases, horrible things. So I think for me, and especially now explicitly, it's hard to process this stuff without starting in a Christian framing. Like you start with citizenship, and it's just another opportunity for us to be disagreeing about something. And you talk about who is our neighbor. This is the Good Samaritan. And the literal parable of the Good Samaritan was an allegory to teach us that those aren't the filters at who your neighbor is or who your brother is.
Robert, some of the divides on these questions, immigration question, but specifically loving new people who come to this country, it comes down to how we view Scripture, right? How do we view what it means to love your neighbor? What does it mean to extend a hand, to open your home? And there's a desire, I think, to be a little defensive and at the same time want to be Christian. How do you go all in on the Christian side without fear of loving people who are very, very different?
That's a tough question. Number one, I think you need to feel secure in and of yourself, within yourself, before you reach out. If you are already filled with insecurities, it's going to be very difficult for you to sincerely reach out to somebody who's different from you, or who has a totally different culture, or
people sense whether you're sincere or not in that
Absolutely,
outreach.
Very easily. I was welcomed into so many families when I came as an international student way back in 1978. That made a huge difference in my perception of Americans, in the perception of this country, and my love of this country. And so that matters. And so if you, Americans generally are seen as friendly, welcoming, to be honest with you. Ever since as a child growing up in Africa, that's all I knew of Americans. And it was an American missionary couple who helped me to come to Messiah University. So that love is very powerful. And currently I know there's so much climate of fear and uncertainty and division. You take a risk anytime you step out of your comfort zone. You do. You have to be willing to take that risk and reach out. But the impact of what you do to a visitor or to someone coming into the country is huge.
So we've got about a minute and a half left here. So the idea of opening your homes is very, very risky. What Robert said, which is American families welcoming him as an international student, is the exception, because statistically, 80% of foreign students who come here never set foot in an American home. So their perception going back to their home countries can often be very negative, and then they become leaders of their countries. How do we, as Christians, open homes when we do not know what the result of that hospitality could be?
Well, you have to use wisdom and you have to be smart. So being a Christian and loving your neighbor doesn't mean that you just throw caution to the wind and just let anybody in. You have to use a certain level of discernment, but also we have to value the fact that God's love that resonates inside of us is an outward love, which means we have to demonstrate it to others. We have to get to a place where we are hospitable to people that come in to our country and allow people to come into our homes. Because when I grew up in the neighborhood that I grew up in, there was hospitality, but only to people you really knew. But understanding that the biblical concept of hospitality was so important that one of the original language, when it talks about violence, part of the violence that the Bible talks about the earth was filled with was lack of hospitality. And so that's a gift from...
I did not know that.
Yeah. That's something that's important to God, that we are hospitable to each other, that we show love and kindness towards each other. And especially when it's somebody who's not in our immediate circle, because it's easy to love your brother or your sister, but how do we demonstrate God's love to those who we don't have a contact with other than we're both humans, and that the love of God inside of us extends towards those, even if they're not the people that we're supposed to love.
I almost think the standard is kind of looking around at the people at our table saying, well, I know why I'm here. Why are you here? Why are you here? And that really is the mark of a Christian home. So thank you very, very much. Have a great weekend, and thanks for the insight you brought to this topic.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, more than just a safe place, a warm bed, and a hot meal, Philly House empowers those who are serving by activating their God-given potential for life transformation. We'll learn how a renovation project will help the mission reach more for the gospel. You're watching Morning Light right here on Lighthouse TV.
Welcome back. We first introduced you to the Philly House in March. For nearly 150 years, Philly House has provided a physical and spiritual sanctuary for the hungry, homeless, and hurting. Last year alone, Philly House sheltered more than 2,000 men. Right now, the mission is undergoing the biggest renovation project in more than 50 years. I talked with the president and CEO, Jeremy Montgomery. Jeremy, thank you for being with us. Tell us about the Philly House.
Philly House is the oldest and largest homeless shelter here in the city of Philadelphia, and we're considered to be the second oldest rescue mission in the United States, and we are even older than the Salvation Army here in the United States. So today, we serve about a third of all the homeless men in this entire city, and we're also the only daily provider of meals to the public 365 days of the year.
Oh my goodness, what types of struggles are you seeing?
Struggles of just the needs of those who come through our doors. So most ask me, characterize this homeless guy. And it's as unique as all of us are unique in terms of their stories. I'll give you one example. Email we got yesterday, which we get on a weekly basis. It's the mother looking for her son. Pleading, we just want to know if he's alive.
Oh my goodness.
Do you know where he is? And we were able to confirm that he's not here with us at Philly House, but that he is alive and he's in another shelter. And so family reunification for most families is even an aspect of the difference in the impact that we provide for a homeless man, but also to the entire family that sometimes just want to know whether my son, my uncle, my brother, my dad is alive.
So some real struggles. We were talking earlier, and you had mentioned you have Lighthouse on every day.
We do. So we follow what's called trauma-informed spiritual formation around here, which is a modality of ministry in which we recognize everyone is in trauma. So every day during lunch, as we serve meals to the public, as well as our shelter guests, we have Lighthouse on our TVs in our dining room. And if you haven't watched Lighthouse at noon, it's Radiant TV, in which it's these beautiful scenes of nature with scripture imposed over it to instrumental hymns. And so you can imagine the peace and the tranquility through Lighthouse that we're able to provide for our guests that are in crisis and trauma and turmoil, to at least allow them with their meal. So we say hope begins with a meal around here, to be able to sit down and enjoy just the beauty of scripture and nature with music.
Oh, that is wonderful. And I'm sure Lighthouse TV is going to be continuing as you make some changes. Talk to us about the big changes that are going to be taking place with the Philly House.
We've only been around for 147 years, and in this building for 50 years, and for the first time in 50 years, we're going to renovate this entire space. So none of these walls are going to be in existence in about 9 months worth of time. And this, for us, is an opportunity to have our physical space also represent the Christian dignity and love that we try to share, especially as it relates to God's love. And we want everyone to feel that every time they walk through our doors.
And how do you see that the Christian faith, the gospel, is making a difference for the people who walk through these doors?
It is the hope in Jesus that we always want to be able to preach and to be able to share. And you remember the story that Jesus shared about the man who built his house on the rock. And so when the storms of life came, and so many of the men who walk through our doors have built their house on that rock. And those that haven't, we remind them, you don't want to have your life built upon the sifting sand, especially when experiencing homelessness and hunger. I mean, that's the storms and the rains of life. And so we do extend that message and that invitation to everyone who walks through our doors.
And what type of impact do you think it's having?
We like to say around here that we hoped not to necessarily end their homelessness, but to make it rare, brief, and non-recurring. And so the transformation that we seek in our specific ministry is to be able to help one to build their house on that rock, which is a rock of stability, such that they never have to come back. They never have to return. And so one of the type of individuals we serve today are those that are dealing with addictions. And they're active in their recovery and retreatment, and they're homeless because they can't go home. So we're the Christian community, instead of them limited on the streets, for them to be able to continue along that journey. And so we walk along these men, even in the aspect of their homelessness. And so what's that worth to that man? Everything. That acceptance, that belonging, and for us to be able to come along. Otherwise, in this life, there's very few places for one to turn when they have those needs.
Thank you for what you're doing, Jeremy. You are making a difference.
I appreciate you being here.
To learn more about the Philly House, check out phillyhouse.org. Coming up next on Morning Light, Mercy Ships is changing lives in regions where resources are scarce. Hear how these floating hospitals are changing the lives of those boarding the ships. Next. Last month, we introduced you to a young couple who serve with Mercy Ships, a nonprofit that sends floating hospitals and medical staff to regions where resources are scarce. The couple is currently serving in Madagascar. Here's how the organization is changing the lives of patients through healthcare and with the gospel. Joanna and Mathias, thanks for being with us. Remind us again about Mercy Ships.
Mercy Ships runs 2 fully equipped hospital ships in sub-Saharan Africa, and they provide free, safe, accessible surgeries to the local population. And they also focus on sustainable impact by training, educating local healthcare professionals to make sure that when the ship leaves to the next country, we really made sure there's a legacy of improved local healthcare.
So talk to us about where you have been recently and what it's been like, surgeries performed there.
Yeah, so we have been working on the Global Mercy, which has been docked in Freetown, Sierra Leone. What we do is we offer surgeries not only to the people in Freetown, but also upcountry as well. That includes maxillofacial surgeries, reconstructive plastic surgeries, general surgeries such as hernias and lipomas, and then also cataract surgeries, eye surgeries, and orthopedic surgeries.
So what was the situation there like?
Yeah, so it's in some ways living on the ship, you have your own room, kind of feels like a hotel room in some ways, and it's air conditioning, which is also quite nice. And you often experience a lot of culture shock going on and off the ship because you're in the country and you're in the market with a lot of people yelling, wanting you to buy different things, and then you come back on the ship and it's a lot more quiet, and you could go down to deck 3 or 4, which are the hospital decks, and you find the patients, and the culture is absolutely still there with the patients and the day crew, but in a different setting, because for them, they really feel like they're in the Western world when they walk onto the ship, because it's cold, for one thing, but it's also much less stimulating in a lot of ways. So,
how do you transform lives there?
Yeah. So there's kind of 3 main ways. One way that lives are transformed is within the crew on mercy ships. Some people who come have never met Jesus, but are really open to it and open to serving. And we've had some crew have some really amazing transformations as they've encountered Jesus and his love and grace in serving with mercy ships and their coworkers. Then there's the day crew as well that we work with. These are local Sierra Leoneans who come on the ship and work with us. And they get to experience just the transformation as they work alongside of people who've given up their time and their jobs often to come and work on mercy ships. And they experience transformation in seeing their own local brothers and sisters people having compassion on them. They experience transformation in being able to offer that compassion themselves, and seeing the way that all these volunteers coming from across the world want to love and serve the community. So I think they're really impacted by that. And then lastly, our patients. And just to give more of a tangible story, I had one patient. I work as a preoperative nurse, so we do a lot of health checks. One of them being making sure the blood pressure is not too high for surgery, because that can be really unsafe with anesthesia and such. So one gentleman had a very high blood pressure, and might have been due to nerves a little bit, but we really felt like, I don't know if he'll be able to get surgery. So I took him to another room with another day crew that I was working with that day, and we just prayed for him and asked that the Lord would just bring down his blood pressure, that he would experience Jesus' peace in this process. So he came back later for another appointment for a surgeon consult, and that day his blood pressure was within limits for surgery. It was good to go, and he was able to get that surgery. So fast forward a few weeks later, I saw him in our low care unit. Actually, he saw me first coming down the hallway and ran over, hey, you, hey, you're the one who prayed for me. You're the one who, I got my surgery, the hernia is repaired, it's gone. Look, like there's no bulge anymore. He was so proud to show me, and he didn't remember that I was a nurse, or that I was the one who did his health checks. He remembered that I was the person who prayed for him, and I think that's where we see transformation in these people.
Mm-hmm. So your volunteers are needed.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very much so, yeah. 3,000 volunteers are needed. And guess what? More than half of the positions are non-medical. Mm-hmm. That's what it takes to run a ship. You could go from A to Z. A could be AV technician, B for barista, C for carpenter, D for diving instructor, E for electrician, the whole alphabet. So really, volunteers are needed, yes.
Mm-hmm. Being the hands and feet of Jesus Christ.
That's right.
Thank you both for being with us. As Mathias had mentioned, volunteers are always needed. For more information about Mercy Ships, go to mercyships.org. Stay with us. We're back right after the break. back. Coming up Monday on Morning Light, we first introduced you to pastor and TV host Ray Heupel Jr. last month. Well, on Monday, he will share how a tragic accident led him to a relationship with Christ. Plus, our Christian counselor shares ways our faith can help us deal with tragedies in our own lives. And that's a look at what's coming up Monday on Morning Light. Now, Jeff, your closing thoughts, and have a nice weekend.
You have a nice weekend, Deborah. Well, this year marks the 181st anniversary of the nativist riots in Philadelphia. Have you heard of that? Also known by another name, the Bible riots, not one of Pennsylvania's finest hours. At the end of the riots, dozens of homes, businesses, even 3 Catholic churches were burned. 20 people died, dozens injured by violent mobs. Police were overwhelmed. Eventually, Governor David Porter would send in the state militia, 5,000 strong, to quell the riots. The cause of this violent, bloody mess? A rumor, a falsehood spread by Protestant opponents who feared working-class Irish immigrants would change their culture. They accused these new neighbors of wanting to ban the Bible in schools. The truth? Irish parents only wanted a choice over which version was to be taught or what hymns would be sung. It's good to remember the Bible riots because bearing false witness, spreading lies can have deadly consequences. Always be on guard. For Deborah and the entire Morning Light team, I'm Jeff Coleman. Thanks for spending the week with us. Go check on your neighbors, God willing. We'll see you back here Monday morning.